particularly like musicals, but I like some of the songs in Fiddler of the Roof. I have to.
It's a
have to
classic
admit.
too.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a great musical.
You know, for some reason, I didn't know that. I thought it came out the movie like in the 60s or 50s or something. It was 1971. I was surprised it was
yeah, it
that
kind of has
recent.
that kind of like around the same time as like Oliver Twist and the one Christmas Carol. A lot of those movies kind of all have that same feel to
Yeah,
them.
yeah. You know, I got to get something off my chest
Oh,
here.
please do.
Before we get to our guest, Dr. Randy Tobley, here in a few minutes. You know, I've been on LinkedIn since like 2009, 14 years. It's amazing, again, how much time passes. And, you know, LinkedIn is known as a business site.
Sure.
You know, you want to stay away from political stuff, keep it on business networking. But I rationalized it in my head as, look, my occupation, my business is politics.
Right.
So that gives me the right to put political stuff on LinkedIn. No one has ever complained, ever. I put up the post from Red State, actually, Susie. The last Red State article I put up on,
really?
it's got 1,500 views. It had like 30 comments, and I say had because some guy who's like old enough to be my father almost was like, you know, LinkedIn is not for politics. You know, it's all over the site, the internet. You know, take it somewhere else. And I was like, dude, this is what I do for a living, so it's okay. And I said, you need to stop being a snowflake, and you forgot to mention Donald Trump. And so I try to go back to the post today, and it's still there, but the comments are restricted that I can't go to them. So I assume that I've been reporting to the LinkedIn gods.
The LinkedIn police.
Yes. So,
oh, dear.
have you ever been, do you do a lot of LinkedIn?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm on it. I was on it for my legal career.
Mm.
I've never used it for my political career. I kept those pretty separate for reason because I didn't want to be having a conflict between like trying cases in front of juries and having that becoming an issue.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So I don't use LinkedIn other than just occasionally to look somebody up that I'm trying to get a hold of or that sort of thing. I'm not a heavy user of it.
Katie, you a big LinkedIn, or is that for the older?
No, I think it's definitely a useful tool, absolutely. But my primary reason why I wasn't on LinkedIn, this is kind of stupid, but my understanding of LinkedIn whenever I was in college was primarily to find jobs.
Right.
And then right out of college, I got an internship with Jeff Allen. And then after I got an internship with Jeff Allen, I got a job with Jeff Allen. And then I've just been working under Jeff Allen for the entirety of the time that I've been out of college. So I never refreshed my LinkedIn. I never really sought other employment because I've always been with Jeff. So, that was my primary reason from college, at least. And that was the resource. So I still need to refresh it, though. It's a good, we find tons of sources for the show, tons of guests for the show. So,
I tell you what,
I'll refresh it.
It's what I found its greatest benefit for me was this, and it allowed me to connect with a lot of people that ordinarily wouldn't give me the time of day because they'd be like, who is this? I don't know you. But because you have a profile and you can put that on there, you're a real person, and they can see that, all right, you're not crazy, you have some credentials. People connect with you. And that's been, because I'm like, some of the people I've connected on LinkedIn, I was like, I would never be connected with them if it wasn't for this. So that's been just a great value.
It's definitely got a value to it.
Because it gives you everything you can put up could be completely false.
Right.
But it gives you that, wow.
That's right. You could be George Santos and just say.
Exactly. You're a lion. Isn't that the big thing they say on there? If you're a lion, LION, I don't know what that stands for, but that's like people that have like 5,000 plus followers.
That's not me.
But it
I've never used it really as social media. I mean, I realize it technically is, but I've used it more just as kind of a connecting, basically like a big address book kind of thing.
I was very weary, but like I said, I joined in 2009. I didn't start really posting political stuff till like 4 years ago, and then I just said, "This is what I was like." This is what I do for a living. Right. What the hell?
Yeah, no, I keep my politics to Twitter and Red State. I keep that off. I don't even use it. I don't even do it on Facebook. I keep Facebook for just, puppies and family and friends.
You do. Yeah, you keep it very, very clean.
Puppy-ish.
No politics. Happy stuff.
Yep.
Exactly. You know, one of our guests is Dr. Randy Tobler. He's holding on the line. Dr. Randy Tobler, how are you, sir?
Nope. You almost.
Gentlemen, we're about to enter the fascinating.
We'll get there, Chris. It's only every day we do this. We'll get there.
Forensic medicine.
Truly, you have a dizzying intellect.
They're really criticizing science because I represent science.
I'm a man who discovered the wheel.
Randy Tobler, Truth Warrior, Woke Destroyer.
Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of loving you.
Dr. Tobler, please forgive me. You have no idea how personal I take it when I screw up someone's opening. So I'm on
Probation.
I'm humbled by that opening. I don't deserve that kind of an opening.
How you been, sir?
Doing well. I'm a little frustrated with market response to what we know is going to be a flailing economy under Big Old Joe here. I mean, his budget today didn't help much either.
No, it didn't. Before we get to that, I want to talk about this testimony of Dr. Redfield on the House yesterday, where he just completely dissected the argument of why this is not something that occurred naturally, and he gave 3 very distinct reasons why. What I want to know ultimately, answer that please, but what I want to know ultimately is, when are we going to see Fauci before some type of House panel and hopefully taking the perp walk?
Yeah, I don't know when we're going to see it, but it couldn't be too soon. I mean, and it's soon enough. It just he has to ultimately be held accountable for what I think was probably, at a minimum, enabling this conspiracy of silence and of misinformation, if not being, the genesis of it. And it's just very troubling. I mean, it's a shame because it's really it's going to take so long to build up the credibility of what was formerly a very respected institution in the National Institutes for Health and his particular Allergy and Immunology Institute, as well as the entire, federal medical establishment. Those people, there's a lot of great people working at the lower levels. We know that many of them got so frustrated at the FDA. Well, not many. Many were frustrated. A couple quit. Let's put it that way. And I'm sure that there's got to be folks that are sort of at the front lines that are very, very disappointed that their leadership has let the entire organizations down.
Chris, you were asking when we were going to see Dr. Fauci, and he's right on the screen in front of you.
Like a weasel.
But that's Neil Cavuto. That's not a House panel inquiring. Dr. Tobler, one of the things that keeps coming up, there was additional hearings today by the it was a select subcommittee on the weaponization of the government, and they talked about the fact that, for instance, Jay Bhattacharya, signatory to the Great Barrington Declaration, was one of the people who was targeted by this censorship. And, obviously he's gotten his voice back, if you will. He's back on Twitter. He's allowed to speak up and speak out. I think Dr. Robert Malone's been here on the station, and he's been given free rein in order to speak up now. And you're seeing more and more of these medical experts speak out, but they were muzzled basically for, the better part of 2 to 3 years. Are you seeing in your field people kind of breathing a little easier, no pun intended, but like feeling less constrained in what they say about COVID and the treatments for it?
Yeah. I think it probably depends on what state they're in. If you're in California, if you're in a blue state, you still are looking over your shoulder to see if you're not going to be somehow sanctioned, punished, licensed, threatened, brought in for a hearing at the Board of Healing Arts, for instance. Because, those blue states are still, I still see people in blue jurisdictions like Colombia, where I'm talking to you from, where they're still wearing masks. They still buy in the lie. And it's and so I think it depends where you're at. But in general, I think doctors are more and more comfortable figuring that. In fact, I talked to an academic cardiologist the other day on the air, who said, when I asked him about this universal vaccine recommendation that the CDC still makes, and he said, look, it should be an individual discussion, and that's just a sea change. That's an absolute avalanche of a change in the mindset of people, especially in academics, because it's a very political atmosphere. You walk the line, or else you're off the line in academics, and so I think that people are feeling, because of the courage of people like Jay Bhattacharya and Marty Makary out of Johns Hopkins. Those voices have been voices of courage. Scott Atlas, of course, who's no longer really in the medical world, but still, certainly speaks strongly for the medical world. And so it's great. I think it's like most things. When you let individual people interact with their individual experts that they like to trust, things usually work out pretty well. When we basically abandon those kind of personal relationships, just like in economic transactions, and we instead give them up to the government and subordinate our own independence, these are the kind of things that happen, and the damage is going to be, I think, irreparable for generations that didn't get their education and for people who suffered damage that probably shouldn't have maybe gotten the vaccine in the first place.
Dr. Tobler in Philadelphia. Today, the president released his $6.8 trillion obscene budget, and they claim within this budget they'll reduce the deficit, by $3 trillion over 10 years. One of those ways, Dr. Tobler, is that they're going to have higher taxes for oil and gas companies. They're going to partially reverse former President Donald Trump's corporate tax cuts. And this one, I'm sorry, I know it affects you personally. There are going to be higher taxes for the ultra-rich. Biden is expected to call for a 25% minimum tax on households that are worth more than $100 million. So I apologize for you on that one, Dr. Tobler.
Dr. Tobler, are you there?
Chris?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it seems like Chris is cutting in and out on me, and I've got five. I don't know what's going on. Can you hear me?
Give me one. Let me put Dr. Tobler on there.
Oh man, and that was such
The wonders of modern technology.
That was such a great joke I had too. The extra 25% tax on households that are worth more than $100 million. Now, I have a question for you,
Sure.
Susie Moore, Miss Attorney. Isn't there something within the Constitution that you can't have a tax that is directly supposed to affect someone or a group or something like that?
Well, I don't think there's anything that limits it in terms of like amounts of money. But I think you can't direct it at, doctors
Yeah.
or
Right.
people of this background or whatever.
Can billionaires be a protected class, or not be a class like doctors or lawyers?
They're not going to be given a protected class status. Not going to happen. But yeah, there is. You can't do like a direct tax, but that's not considered a direct tax.
Okay.
So
yeah, this budget, I wanted, because I've got a lot of it to what they released. They said this is going to reduce the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years, which in a budget that is $34 trillion in the hole, I mean, over 10 years, what's that, $300 million? I mean, how much deficit reduction are we really doing?
No.
And help me with my math.
it would be $3 trillion, but we'd still
over 10 years. Over what?
Yeah.
What's that per year?
Oh, over 10 years?
Yeah.
I gotcha. No, it's still billions and billions of dollars. I don't know.
I mean billions. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So,
It's a lot of money.
Dr. Tober, you back with us?
I'm back. I'm sorry. I think that today our connection is courtesy of the Wuhan Telephone and Light Company.
Did you get a chance to hear any of my question?
Well, I did. I heard about the Biden budget and the $6.8 trillion, and then I lost you.
Then I was saying that they are saying that this is going to reduce the deficit by $3 trillion over 10 years. One of those is to tax oil and gas companies. The other is to reverse some of Donald Trump's corporate tax cuts. And this last one, it affects people like you, Dr. Tobler. There's going to be higher taxes for the ultra rich. Households that are $100 million or more will have a 25% minimum tax.
Oh my gosh! I better call my accountant immediately.
Yeah, you better get on that.
Sorry, that's the end of this interview. I've got to run and talk to the accountant.
You're gonna have to put another safe in your library behind that painting.
Oh, we have some serious tax planning to do, don't we?
Yes, you do.
Oh my gosh! No, this is like a redo of Bill Clinton's class warfare. I mean, he started that. Remember when there was a retroactive tax increase in the early '90s under Clinton? And not that this will be retroactive, but I mean. You can never match the insatiable the new soccer team in town. could not have an appetite after 2 champion matches more than the federal government's appetite for our money. And I'm afraid that what they're going to do is really, there's going to be a terrible collision, Chris, at a time when the economy this recession is going to be developing next year and probably already getting pretty mature, at a time when then he just takes a gut punch to people that take risk, have the courage to invest. Some things work out, some they don't. And now they're going to be punished if they do well. And where do those investments go? They go to projects and investments in companies that expand their businesses and develop new products and, yes, hire new workers to do that. And I think it's just going to be a a terrible perfect storm for the American worker and the 99% that he's not going to punish. It's going to be bad.
I'm gonna have to channel my inner Joe and say to you, "Come on, man, come on."
No joke.
Go ahead, Susan.
Not a joke. Not a joke. Dr. Tobler, one of the developments this week, yesterday, I think it was, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina announced that he's going to be introducing legislation aimed at basically the narco state of Mexico. Actually, not at the state itself, but at designating the drug cartels in Mexico as foreign terrorist organizations, with an aim towards being able to go after them militarily. And they really emphasize the hazards that are presented to America and American citizens by fentanyl, and in terms of the sheer volume that's coming across the border, and just the number of deaths and overdoses we're seeing from that. And then I saw something else about there's another drug, like a tranquilizer of xylitine, or I don't know. There's something else that's now becoming a thing. And I guess what I was wondering is, A, do you like the idea of designating these drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations so that military force can be used against them? And B, whether you think it's going to be effective?
Well, I'm certainly not in favor of us crossing the border to go over and do our business there. But I don't know, at a time when young men in particularly are lost from a sociologic level. I mean, they're desperate, they're lost, they don't know what's going on. You can read that in any review of what's happened to young American males. Let's get them in the military and the National Guard, and let's build a human wall on those areas where Donald Trump wasn't able to complete the physical wall, and let's just put a stop to it. This thing could be resolved. American men and young women, if they wanted to enroll, could do something meaningful this country in terms of service, in return for if they've been getting a welfare check, or if they've been, on some other kind of public assistance, or if they've been in their parents' basement. Let's put people to work defending the borders of this country against what is an invasion. It may not be an armed invasion, but it's certainly a drug invasion, and it's causing more damage to this country than tornadoes and earthquakes and hurricanes. And don't we send National Guard in to help with those? Yeah, it's time to militarize our defense on the southern border, and call them, whether they're domestic terrorists, whether they're drug pushers, call them whatever you want. We need to put a barrier against them now, and it's not going to happen under Joe Biden, though. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a new administration with congressional backing, which means a landslide victory in about 18 months.
Dr. Tobler, there is a lot of disdain for Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell because of some of the actions that he has taken, but we heard news last night that he slipped and fell and is in the hospital and has suffered from a concussion. One thing I didn't know, that he suffered from polio as a boy, and one of his legs was paralyzed, and he got the full strength of it. How would that affect him at the age of 81, having a injury like that? He fell down and broke his shoulder a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Well, there's no doubt that some polio victims recovered fully, some never recovered at all and died. Some, of course, have partial disability that then affects them their lifelong. And of course, when you're folks that are geriatricians and caregivers of older people and family members know that can be a problem.
That's so
we
annoying
might have
and
to,
irritating.
Yeah, we might have to cut the interview just because we can't get him. Sorry, Dr. Tobler.
Yeah, hope have a good weekend, and we'll have you next week. Wow.
Yeah,
With a
man.
better connection.
Yes,
I hate
yeah.
that because he
Yeah.
always has good answers, and I'm always very interested to.
Chris,
to
I like
hear
you
what
said,
he says.
woo! Whenever you couldn't hear, you said, woo!
I can't
Ric
imagine.
Flair enters the
I can't
conversation.
imagine. A little inside here. Tony Colombo wears his headphones on like 12 when it only goes up to 10, and that noise that we just heard over Dr. Tobler's phone, I can't imagine that sound coming over with your headphones on
Yes.
12. So that was Dr. Tobler. I love talking to him. You can hear his show on Saturday mornings from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Every Saturday morning. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show with Susie Moore sitting in. When we come back, we'll have Jim Carafano at 424. 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
But man, I still think them cats are crazy. They were asking if you were around, how you was, where you could be found. I told them you were living downtown, driving all the old men crazy. The boys are back in town.
Hi, Sean Long for STL Fenceworks. For over 50 years, our time-honored commitment to quality, service, and affordability make STL Fenceworks the go-to authority for fence, deck, and leisure space projects. During these unsure times of severe inflation and supply shortages, you can depend on STL Fenceworks to meet your needs. Being the #1 fence and deck contractor in the state, we've leveraged our position to make contract buy-ins hedging against price increases. Also, our buying power has allowed us to stockpile fence and deck material. There are no shortages at STL Fenceworks. In fact, we have more fence and deck material on hand now than we have had at any time in our 50-year history. Lastly, our commitment to a quality and customer-first approach has never wavered. Your project will be completed by experienced craftsmen in a timely manner, and our lifetime warranty reinforces that commitment. STL Fenceworks warranty surpasses anything offered in the industry. Visit stlfenceworks.com and allow us to bring your backyard dreams to life. As always, at STL Fenceworks, your satisfaction is our passion.
This Dr. Randy Tobler segment is brought to you by Advanced Dentistry Now. Doctors Dan Cusimano and Dr. Megan Dwyer, 636-978-0226, or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com. If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
But I'm not going to turn my dial off to you guys. I really like this channel.
This is News Talk STL. Welcome home.
Hey, Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros. When Christine and I bought our new house, we knew the gutters were an issue, and after meeting the Gutter Pros team, we knew that they were right for us. Gutter Pros is your all-in-one gutter service team that offers a variety of affordable solutions, and they even offer free estimates, so there's no cost to you to find out if they are right for your home, just like they were for ours. If you're having a problem with your gutters, contact the Gutter Pros now, because with Gutter Pros, water goes where they tell it to. Call them at 314-656-7195 or visit gutterpros.com.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019 94.1 and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. President Biden presented his budget plan today. It increases taxes on the wealthy and steers more money to popular programs such as Medicare. But Oklahoma Congresswoman Stephanie Bice says President Biden is making the same mistake again.
The president's budget will double down on failed economic policies that have been devastating for millions of hardworking Americans. It locks in historic levels of spending on far-left policies and higher taxes that'll worsen inflation and drive our economy into recession.
The budget plan will serve as a political talking point for a president preparing to run for re-election and trying to draw contrast with Republicans. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell remains in a Washington area hospital after sustaining a concussion after a fall last night. In the Senate's opening prayer, Chaplain Barry Black mentions McConnell's hospitalization.
Lord, bless Senator McConnell with a speedy recovery.
The Senate's been without several members recently due to illness. Norfolk Southern's CEO is apologizing to Congress and pledging millions of dollars to help East Palestine, Ohio, recover from last month's fiery train derailment. CEO Alan Shaw.
We will be in the community for as long as it takes. To be clear, there are no strings attached to our assistance. If residents have a concern, We want them to come talk to us.
But a bipartisan group of senators, including both Ohio senators, Democrat Sherrod Brown and Republican J.D. Vance, want to impose new regulations on railroads. On Wall Street, a rough day as the Dow was down by 543 points, the Nasdaq dropped 237, the S&P lower by 73. More on these stories at townhall.com.
And it's Prager here. Sue and I mean it. Dogs are part of our family. We love Otto and Snoopy so much. There's nothing quite like their loyal companionship. So we provide them with Rough Greens. In fact, I just talked to my wife about it because we want them to be healthy and we want them to be with us as long as possible. That's true. I know Sebastian Gorka feels the same way.
The Pragers and I couldn't agree more. Our pups, Killian and Leia, rely on us to provide what's best for them. And naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black has packed Rough Greens full of vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, omega oils, and more that supplement their food in a way that has shown us great results. Trying out Rough Greens is an easy yes, recommended by me, Dr. G.
Naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black here, and I'm so proud that the Pragers and Sebastian Gorka have entrusted their dog's health to Rough Greens. I'm so confident that Rough Greens can help your dog, I'm offering you a free Jumpstart trial bag. Just cover the shipping. Yes, your dog's food is dead food, but you can bring it back to life with Rough Greens. Go to ruffgreens.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD.
Has the subject of selling your home come up recently? Well, if it has, I want you to give the Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway a call right now at 314-810-SOLD. Tim Jones here for Rodney and Jen Wallner of the Wallner home selling team. You know, the Wallners, when you call them at 314-810-SOLD, we'll be offering you a flexible commission plan tailored to your family's specific needs. They have so many approved home buyers, they're going to guarantee to obtain you an offer. That's because they're selling 15 times more homes per year than your typical realtor. Look, if you change your mind, if it's just not the right time for you, every single commission plan that the Wallners work out with you includes a no obligation, no long-term commitment. If you're not happy, you can walk away at any time. I know you're going to have a great experience, though, with the Wallners when you call them today at 314-810-SOLD. Rodney and Jen, a fantastic husband and wife team. They have so much experience in this entire region that they're going to give you top-notch service from beginning to the end of the relationship, and trust me, well beyond. Give the Wallners a call today for a free listing consultation. Sell your home with this top-producing real estate team, Rodney and Jen Wallner, 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
There's only one unforgivable crime in America today, and that's standing up against the left. This is Mark McCloskey, proud to join the News Talk STL team, and I plan on committing that crime every chance I get on the air and every day of our lives. And I encourage all of the listeners and all the people of America to stand up against the left, to reclaim our freedoms, and we're going to do it on this radio station and throughout the country.
Mark McCloskey on fire.
Join me on this quest to preserve our freedoms and make sure this government works for us.
Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL. Talk radio made in St. Louis.
Very excited for what you guys are doing for the St. Louis community.
For St. Louis.
Relevant local talk.
Saying what we are thinking.
This is News Talk STL.
No, you guys are awesome. I love you. And it's a tremendous honor to be on the station.
News, analysis, and opinion.
Thanks for covering the local angle.
Come on, people. This is America.
We better open our eyes.
Really local, really good.
News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and newstalkstl.com. Larry Connors, USA.
Well, source matters a lot. That would mean the director of National Intel is either lying himself or he's not that intelligent.
Larry Connors.
Or both.
Weeknights at 6 on News Talk STL. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
And welcome into the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 407, Thursday, March 9th. And with me in the studio is Susie Moore, Managing Deputy Editor of RedState.com. My partner, Tim Jones, is in warm, sunny Florida today and yesterday. He will be back with us Monday. We've got one of our favorite guests on the line, Daryl Jones, who's president at the Herzog Foundation. We always like having him on and talk to him about education reform and other matters regarding education. Daryl, how are you today?
I'm doing really well. It's great to be with you. Hope it's warm on your side of the state.
It's not as warm as I'd like. It's not 85, 90, with about 90 degrees
Florida.
humidity.
It's a little dreary outside, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm.
I know. Same here. It's really not Florida weather, is it? We chose poorly this week, apparently.
Exactly. Daryl, it seems that Governor Huckabee Sanders, who everyone knows was the press secretary for Donald Trump, has really hit the ground running as the brand new governor. She has signed into law a really comprehensive, to steal a liberal word, school choice bill into law. Can you explain to us what it is, and is there any possibility of something like that being passed here in Missouri?
That great question, and you are right on. You know, she told us that she was going to do this in her State of the Union rebuttal speech, a month ago, and by golly, she has fulfilled her promise for sure. She signed into law this bill that creates education freedom accounts throughout Arkansas, giving parents, approval to use education dollars in whatever private school that the parents decide. The law that was passed does have some income thresholds. For the first 3 years, families have to qualify. But, after 3 years, it becomes a fully universal tax credit savings account that's available for parents. So quite a sweeping legislation for sure, and it goes into effect June 30th of this year, just in advance of the next school year. Pretty impressive.
Daryl, this is Susie Moore. Following up on that, so we've got Arkansas passing this bill. I know Arizona did a bunch with school choice. We've got other states that are getting it done, and Missouri seems to still be kind of dragging its feet. Or maybe maybe I'm misunderstanding that. What is your take on it?
Well, interestingly, a year ago, or actually, when I guess 2021 legislation was when it was passed to go into effect in July of 2022. At the time, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe it went through. This is incredible. This is huge. What a big deal. Then Arizona did what they did. Iowa did what they did. Sarah Huckabee Sanders did what she did. And now it's like, hey, what are we doing? What are we thinking around here? Let's pick this thing up. And interestingly, the Missouri legislature is really talking about it and revising it and bringing it more in sync with what you're finding states doing across the country. We've talked about it before. There is a frustration among parents with the system that is broken. They're not happy with the product. They want options. They want their kids back. And legislatures across the country are paying attention, and certainly the Missouri legislature. I know that there are 2 bills that passed through the Senate Education Committee just on Tuesday of this week. The first one would radically, I would say, pick up what the Missouri Scholars Program that's in existence right now is already doing, in that it would move the total tax credit cap from $25 million to $75 million per year. It would increase the scholarship amounts for students It would eliminate the homeschool background checks. It would expand the geographic limits. This is huge. This is what we're hearing across the state. It would expand the geographic limits to include any county with a city of 30,000 or more. Right now, to qualify, you have to be in a city in Missouri with 30,000 citizens or more. This legislation, this amendment, would actually make that entire county now qualifies if there's a city with 30,000, and it would also eliminate the income limits altogether. And so that's a huge piece that passed the Senate Education Committee. Another one that passed on Tuesday would create the savings account program without any geographic restrictions or prior public school attendance requirements. And so, it looks like the Missouri legislature is really seriously talking about bringing what is our law up to speed with what's the going trend among frustrated families in other states.
Speaking with Daryl Jones, president at the Heritage Foundation, Herzog Foundation, excuse me.
There you go.
Herzog Foundation.
Right.
Daryl, the teachers unions and the status quo say that open enrollment and school choice will only destroy the public school system instead of building it up. Can you destroy that argument?
Well, it is certainly what they say, isn't it? It's certainly what they say. The reality is it opens up options for every parent to choose the product that works best for them. That's the American way. If you want to drive a Ford, you can. If you want to drive a Chevy, you can. If you want a foreign option, you can. Education is the means that, this is what you do. And realistically, in states where we have seen, laws change to offer education choice, in fact, the public school systems do better. There's that competition that allows all boats to rise with a rising tide. And so realistically, what we're finding in states where it's happened and been going on, with education freedom and these kinds of education savings accounts, is in fact that it not only does it not tear up the public system, but it actually betters the public system for all students across the area.
Daryl, there was a report earlier this week about test scores in Missouri that was, if I read correctly, was abysmal, really. And I'm sure that it's not unique to Missouri. I'm sure that across the country we're seeing that, particularly as the fallout from COVID. But what do you say to parents who are frustrated with their students' current situation, who don't feel like they're reaping the benefits of their education and are falling behind? What suggestions, what hope can you offer them?
Well, that's a great question, and frankly, a question that we get all of the time here at the Herzog Foundation. And one is that there really are private options that are available to families. A lot of the ESAs, certainly the Missouri Scholars, is helping families across the state of Missouri to find other options where test scores are better, where children are performing better, where education is really taking place. And those are options that are available. But another thing that the Herzog Foundation is about, we have an initiative that we call HF Schoolbox. If you go to hfschoolbox.com, you can find out more about it. But it's basically if the three of us on the air right now decided we wanted to start a Christian school in our community, HF Schoolbox will show you the roadmap. And in fact, the Herzog Foundation will pay to put someone who's leading the kind of school that we want as a coach for us to walk us through the process to successfully launch a Christian school, whether it's in our church, whether it's not in our church, but maybe it's a one-room schoolhouse. Maybe it's in our cul-de-sac. Maybe we want a K through 12 school. Maybe we want just a dozen students from our neighborhood. Lots of education options that are really showing great results across the country. That HF Schoolbox certainly makes available. HerzogFoundation.com, all of the initiatives that we're providing for families and certainly for Christian schools, you can find all of those things at HerzogFoundation.com.
And we're speaking with Daryl Jones, who's president I'm sorry, the Herzog Foundation. It's too close together.
You're good.
I
Thank
deeply
you.
apologize
Thank you.
for that. There was a story in the Post-Dispatch last week that was talking about how there was dropping enrollment, not only in St. Louis cities, but school districts, but statewide. How much of that do you think is due to the transgenderism agenda and the secular agenda that people are foisting on our kids? And do you have any statistics that show how many Christian schools have opened up since the pandemic and we started learning what our kids are being taught?
Right, absolutely. There are organizations that provide those kinds of statistics that track those things, certainly accrediting organizations. I will tell you, homeschool has skyrocketed 2-to-1 to private schools that are opening. So homeschool has become a very, very affordable option for families, and that's another lane that the Herzog Foundation is really trying to help bring support to families in. But yeah, it's really true. I mean, what I hear from educators who have left the public system is it has to do what they're finding is it is certainly a curriculum that has now with families and educators alike put their faith under fire in a way where, teachers are saying occupationally, my job is now in direct conflict with my faith, and they're holding to their faith. The other issue has to do with just a lack of discipline in the public education system that is really a reflection of, it's a microcosm of larger culture. Of just a lack of law and order and discipline and expectation. And here's how we in a civil society choose to live among other people. And for educators, those have become main issues. What I hear from families who are leaving the system has everything to do with the agendas that are counter to their faith values.
Daryl, one term that we're starting to hear a lot in the lexicon when it comes to school reform and education are micro schools. What exactly are micro schools, and are they predominantly Christian?
Well, the answer is yes. There are both charter and private micro schools. But we're seeing a great growth of micro schools across the country through the Herzog Foundation. We're finding quite a bit of churches that are saying, hey, we don't know that we're a K through 12 with a gymnasium and a library, but what we really want to do is we really do have a dozen families in our church that are looking for options, and we'd like to do right here in our church with these dozen families an affordable education option. And micro schools are looking just like that. I mean, when you think back to, the old Little House on the Prairie and the one-room schoolhouse, my goodness, it's happening all over the country. Arizona has really led the way in micro schools. But you're finding them rise up, as charter schools, but you're also finding them certainly in Christian circles as well.
We've been speaking with Daryl Jones, president of the Herzog Foundation. You can get more information about them at herzogfoundation.com. Is there another source that you'd like to direct them to, Daryl?
Well, the Lion, readlion.com. Readlion, Lion.com is also, you can access it through herzogfoundation.com. But it's basically a news site that we have created not quite 18 months ago, with the idea of just letting families know what's going on in education across the country. And certainly we highlight the best in Christian education, but we're also recognizing those stories all across the country of what's happening in K through 12 education and bringing it to light out of the darkness, out of the shadows, and letting families know what's going on.
herzogfoundation.com. Great talking to you, Daryl, and look forward to talking to you again.
Always good talking with you. Have a great week.
Same to you. And when we come back, we'll have our old favorite. For some reason, I feel like we haven't talked to Jim Carafano in
a
weeks.
month.
Has it been that
It's been
long?
almost a month.
Well, okay, then it wasn't me. I was
Nope.
like, maybe we had him on last week, and I just didn't know that. Well,
We
wow.
had Dakota, which is amazing.
That's right.
But
That's
Jim
right.
has been traveling.
Well, we will have the great Jim Carafano with us when we come back. And also, you want to stick around because at 5:24, we'll have Whitley Yates. She is a fellow Project 21 member and award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and political activist. She is the future of the Black conservative movement and the Republican conservative movement, and can't wait to introduce you to her. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
The sun doesn't shine, rainbows and waterfalls run through my mind.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Stephen Moore from Freedom Works.
You heard him talk about how he's reduced the deficit by $1.4 trillion. What he did was he came in and he increased the deficit by $2.8 trillion in his first year, and then the second year it got cut all the way back to $1.4 trillion. If you gain 50 pounds one year and then the next year you gain another 25, you say, "Oh look, I'm reducing my weight."
Weekday mornings, 5:30 till 9 on News Talk STL.
iHelp is the immigrant home English learning program here in St. Louis that helps empower immigrant families by providing individualized in-home English language education and tools for the effective navigation of our community. iHelp connects volunteer teachers with adult immigrant and refugee learners in our community to develop English and life skills. To learn more or to volunteer as a tutor, visit ihelpstl.org. That's ihelpstl.org.
Hey folks, Tim Jones here for Window World. Window World is simply the best for less. Did you know, folks, that Window World windows are one of only 2 windows that carry the Good Housekeeping seal of approval? That's because in just over 20 years in the business in the St. Louis region, Window World has improved the look and thermal efficiency of over 70,000 customers in our area. Window World uses a double strength glass, gives it a strength not commonly used in replacement windows. In fact, they're so strong, they're so durable. When I was recently at their showroom, I was able to stand on their window without any problems at all. You know, if you already own Window World windows, remember they also do siding and entry doors as well. They offer 18 months, same as cash financing with approved credit. The thing that sets Window World apart is their commitment to customer service, proven by their excellent track record with both the Better Business Bureau and so many other reporting agencies. They're the preferred window of the St. Louis Blues. You can get them as well when you call them at 314-993-1800. For a free in-home estimate today, call Window World at 314-993-1800. Visit them 24/7 at windowworld.com. That's windowworld.com.
The Rob Carter Show.
How good is that Pure Cure coffee? Are you loving it?
Oh, yeah.
Pure Cure coffee is fantastic. What I like about this coffee, other than the multiple flavors, and I love the smell. You know, my wife and I get up every morning, we have the Pure Cure coffee. I love the taste. Listen, it's better coffee. PureCureCoffee.com. PureCure coffee.com. Get yourself some. It is fresh, delicious coffee, multiple flavors. Pure Cure Coffee. Get some. PureCureCoffee.com. PureCure coffee.com.
Now, the Onder Prescription with Dr. Bob Onder.
I'm Dr. Bob Onder. A very important issue in front of the Missouri legislature this year is the question of how we amend our Constitution. In the United States, we do not have a direct democracy. We have a constitutional republic. At the same time, we have seen more and more out-of-state special interests coming to Missouri and essentially buying constitutional amendments. Examples of progressive special interests amending our Constitution include Medicaid expansion, marijuana legalization, animal rights groups attacking animal agriculture, changes in employment law, clean Missouri redistricting, and now ranked choice voting. Only about half the states have an initiative petition process at all. Only 18 have an IP process to amend the Constitution, and fewer yet allow their constitutions to be amended by a simple majority. This is the time, once and for all, to reform the IP process to make it truly represent the interests of Missourians, not progressive special interests. I'm Dr. Bob, and that's my prescription.
Find more Dr. Bob Onder at bobondermo.com. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
If you leave me now, you'll take away the biggest part of me.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
And if you leave me now, you'll take away the very heart of me. Ooh, no, baby, please don't go. Ooh, girl, I just want you to stay.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And you know, I love Thursdays, and it's been so long since we've had him on, and we'll talk to him next.
We have one of our favorite guests on the line, Jim Carofano of the Heritage Foundation. He's Vice President for Foreign and Security Policy.
What the Democrats have, it's not a partisan comment, it's just a fact. What they've always done is for 15 years now, they've tied any immigration reform to amnesty.
Wild man Jim Carofano. No politics, just policy.
They won't deal with the problem that their policies are tantamount to open borders.
It's not just a catchphrase that he is the international man of mystery.
And as he does every Thursday, we have Jim Carofano with the Heritage Foundation. He's Vice President for Foreign and Security Policy. Jim, how are you?
Well, I know you guys think I live at an airport, but I really don't.
Are you in an airport now?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you disclose where that airport is without having to harm us physically?
All I can say is remember the Alamo.
Okay, that's an easy one. I can get that. Jim, there seems to have been over the past few weeks a lull in the Russian-Ukrainian war. People were talking about that Russia was just restocking basically, but they were going to continue the war at some time. It seems like we have that. There's been a massive missile barrage and drone barrage by Russia right now. Tell us what's going on, what you know.
Yeah, so, which, by the way, probably cost the Russians about $500 million. And so, I mean, I think a lot of military assessments going through a lot of stuff. And basically, people say, look, the Russians can keep fighting, but they can't actually, conquer Ukraine. But they can keep fighting, right? So, interestingly, I think I told you, I was in India last week. It's a big conference, and India is one of the few countries that still kind of tries to engage with the Russians. And I probably talked to more Russians last week than I have in my whole life. And including Lavrov was there, the foreign minister who actually had a panel discussion with the moderator on Ukraine. And what's interesting is, the Russians were at this conference the year before, and they were kind of a bit deer in the headlights. But this year, I guess they really tried to send a bunch of folks that really were like on message. And it was not conciliatory in any way. I mean, the Russians were very aggressive, the same old lines, about it's all the Ukrainians' fault and everything else, and no appetite whatsoever for ceasefire or peace talks, which, I always kind of, I don't know, chuckle because none of this is funny, but when people say, well, we need peace and, we need a ceasefire, well, I don't know who they're talking to because they're not talking to the Russians. because the Russians clearly aren't interested in that. So they're sending very clear signals they're going to keep fighting. But all I can tell you, particularly we're seeing what's going on now is the Russian conventional military forces get weaker every day they fight. But that's just where we are.
Jim, you mentioned the Alamo, and it got me to thinking. I just saw this headline come across that says the Chinese rocket that put the spy satellites in orbit broke up or is breaking up over Texas. And it occurred to me, not only to tell you to duck, but also, the Chinese spy balloon was all anybody could talk about for about 2 weeks a month ago, and we haven't really heard much in the past week or two about that. Where do we stand with, our stance as far as China and their spy balloons?
Well, my guess is the Chinese aren't going to do that again anytime soon. I mean, one of the things we know now is that the government knew the balloon was coming. They know where the balloons were launched from. They tracked it the whole way. They jammed the balloons go ahead. So, one of the things the Chinese learned was the balloon thing isn't actually kind of working very well because the Americans can find them when they want to, and they can jam them. So I'm not sure why the Chinese would have that together, but they won't. Something about the Chinese, when you do something to counter them, they just don't, go home. They try to figure out another way to get the same thing. So, as we discussed before, they're trying to get targeting data for their nuclear missile force of the United States. And if the balloon thing doesn't work, they will try something else. They'll buy farmland and try to look over the hill. They'll try to steal the stuff. They'll try to bribe people to give it to them. So the Chinese threat is very real, and it's not changing. But the other thing, and again, not a partisan comment because I'm not partisan. It's very clear that they continue to think that Joe Biden is a weak president, and you got to think every day they're thinking about how can I put another one over on this guy.
Jim, it's getting to the point where it is unsafe for American tourists to visit Mexico. We've had recently 4 Americans were kidnapped. 2 of them were murdered. There's been talk of for the U.S. government to say that the drug cartels are a terrorist organization, which some would assume that means that our military can go into Mexico and take these people out. Is that a good idea? And are you in favor of that?
Yeah, first of all, I think securing our border is a national security priority. I think that the cartel are a real threat. I think if there was a mission for the U.S. military, that is a valuable and appropriate action. The problem I have with this kind of theoretical discussion of let's use the military to clean the cartel out is, in practical terms, how does that work? That is literal. There's no way you can argue that if we conduct Afghan military operations in Mexico, that's a violation of Mexican sovereignty. It just is. And Mexico could consider that an act of war. And I don't know any other way around that. It's not like you have, even at the height of fighting the cartels in the 80s and in the 90s, even right after the FARC, when we provided a lot of military aid and intelligence support and everything else to these countries, no country asked or permitted U.S. military combat operations in these countries. So I just don't know how that works. And the other thing is look, what makes the cartels a threat? It's not their armored division. It's the money, honey. And the number one...
On the anniversary of Biggie Smalls, you rhyme. I love that.
If the number one way to stop the money is to shut down the open border policies, which are feeding billions and billions of dollars. So, this is the nonsense here. So you're telling me that you're not going to stop the president from continuing to allow the cartels to amass billions and billions of dollars, but then you want to spend billions and billions of dollars conducting military operations against the cartels. Well, I don't know how that makes sense, right? So shutting off the money source and then going after their sources of money, that's, as we say in the military, that's the real center of gravity. That's what's going to take the cartels down. I don't know how military operations do that. And we've seen this before, is you don't need army divisions and brigades to take out cartel leaders, even if you wanted to do that, right? But if you take out the cartel leadership and you don't take out the money and the infrastructure underneath that, it's easily replaceable.
Yeah, Jim, I was watching, and I suspect Senator Graham was the one speaking out on this because the 4 Americans that were involved in this kidnapping were from South Carolina. I watched his press conference with Senator Kennedy yesterday afternoon, and it seemed to me like his emphasis was going after the labs and the networks. But I agree, the practical effect of that may be a little difficult to see how that works out. Although I did note that the Gulf Cartel has apparently issued an apology for the 2 Americans they killed, which we don't see drug cartels apologizing very often, so maybe that was in response to the threat of a U.S. military force.
Good point.
Well, I don't know if it was, largely the cartels have avoided going after American civilians for 2 reasons. One is, they don't go after the places of tourism because they make money for people, and that would upset the people that's there. And probably the cartels invest in some of these things, so they're making money off of this, so they don't want to do that. The other thing is a lot of these places where American goes, that's where the cartels live.
Right.
Because it's safe, right? So it's not. It doesn't seem like a deliberative predictive act. And to your point about taking out the labs and other things, labs are very cheap to put together. Point attacks like labs and people. It's good for movies and TV shows, but that is not a sustained campaign that's going to prevent the cartels from making money and doing business. And, the number one profit right now for the cartels is moving people. So unless we're going to start, so it's this kind of image we have in our head. Well, we take out their making cartel in the jungle. That's not the biggest source of profits. I mean, so I just think that I think there's a lot of emotion there, a lot of frustration, but not, in terms of a practical military campaign, I haven't really heard anybody articulate anything that makes a lot of sense.
Jim, I know
the funny thing is if people complain about giving $100 billion to Ukraine, I'd give $100 billion to the Mexicans if they were willing to fight the cartels.
Might be worth it.
I agree. Jim, I know you don't do politics, but I'm going to ask you kind of a semi-political question. McCarthy, House Speaker, was scheduled to meet with Zelensky, I think, over in Ukraine, but he has canceled that trip right on the eve of the budget talks, where a lot of Republicans think that we're sending money down a rat hole. Do you think McCarthy is playing politics, and is this the right time to do it when so many lives could be at effect over in Ukraine?
Well, one is I think it's a little dangerous for him to go to Ukraine right now. So not so sure that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's true.
The other is, to be honest, is it would send the wrong signal. I mean, he's supposed to be negotiating about our fiscal future, not gallivanting around the country and the world. So, yeah, it is the wrong time to do that.
So why was Merrick Garland there?
I have no idea why Garland was in Ukraine.
That's a good question.
I just don't know.
I feel kind of stupid because I didn't know he was over there. I missed that.
Earlier this week?
Yeah. I mean, typically we send senior officials like the FBI or the CIA or the adjutant general over there when we're, coordinating something. So, I mean, I could guess, so for example, one of the things the Ukrainians are incredibly sensitive to is this criticism about accountability and money laundering and corruption, stuff like that. So they want to make sure that flank is really tied up. So they've been working very closely with the administration on accountability and auditing and putting mechanisms in place to make sure they're countering corruption and stuff like that. So Garland may have gone over to help with that because both sides realize that that's really the Achilles heel. I mean, if somebody walks in one day and says, here's $50 billion that some guy used to buy a house in the Amalfi Coast or something. That's a killer, for Republican support for Ukraine. So Garland, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah. Jim, my third eye is telling me that you have a book you need to promote. Is that true?
No.
I thought last time we talked to you a few months ago, you were working on your seventh or eighth book.
I actually have a book that's in the truck, but I don't think it's going to be out anytime soon. So
Okay.
So don't worry about that.
We'll talk to him many times before
We
that.
will. Jim, safe travels from where you're traveling to, and we will talk to you again next week, sir. Hopefully.
All right, thanks, man. You finally get rid of that Tim guy?
No, he is out today. He's actually in Florida, so he's soaking up a little sun.
Oh, really?
But he'll be back tomorrow.
So he didn't hear my insulting comment that I just made.
No, probably
We're still
not.
friends, right?
I'll cut the
So that's
tape,
good.
though.
Yeah, we have
I'll cut the
podcasts,
tape,
though.
Jim.
Oh, thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks. You guys are the best.
No problem,
Thanks.
Jim.
Thanks,
Bye.
Jim. Yeah, so I think, is it safe to assume that he's in San Antonio?
That's probably
Alamo.
reasonable.
There's a
I think
hint,
it's
hint.
You
reasonable.
ever been to the Alamo?
We
I've
nudge,
not.
nudge.
I've been to San Antonio, but I've not been to the Alamo.
Have you been to the Alamo, Kate?
I have not.
You know, it's historic.
Mhm.
I like stuff like that, but I mean, it just doesn't seem like that type of thing where, okay, yes, this is very important that some Americans fought to the last few of them, and then what else do you do there?
As a Dallas Cowboys fan, you should be careful which Texans you say that to. I think they take it very seriously.
Exactly. When we come back, we'll talk a little 2024 politics, what's going on. A lot of people are traveling to Iowa. And, one of my wife's favorite books or favorite movies is what's the movie with Spaceballs? Where the character says, merchandising, merchandising.
Yes, it is.
Well, Donald Trump, whatever you say about the man, he is a master at merchandising.
Sure is.
And we'll have that story when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, 99.1 HD3 and newstalkstl.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Hey, it's Katie, reminding you to subscribe to our show podcast so you never miss anything that happens here at News Talk STL. Get our podcasts every day on the show pages at newstalkstl.com or just subscribe to your favorite shows on Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, or anywhere else you get your podcasts.
Hey, Chris Arps here telling you about my friends over at the Dental Link. I actually had an appointment today. And from all the time I've been going to Dental Link, it's always been with Dr. Alan Link. But today, Andrew, his son, was in today and took care of me. They have two convenient locations in Baldwin and Melville. They switched up today. So Dr. Link was in Melville and Dr. Drew was in Baldwin. And, boy, what a great practice that they have, that they can have the old and the new. Everyone there treats you like family. I told you I love the dental assistants. They just treat you like family. And, my journey has been having many dental implants put in. And if you are missing one or more teeth or you suffer from loose dentures, many dental implants might be the solution for you as well. Many dental implants, they're less invasive, they're less painful, and your recovery time is much shorter. Plus, best of all, the cost to you is much less than older, more traditional dental implants. As I said, there are two convenient locations in Baldwin and in Melville. Give them a call today at 314-794-6464 or look them up on the internet at thedentallink.com.
Steph's Pizza is on the move to Lake St. Louis. That's right, you can now get the legendary Steph's Pizza and Pasta in Lake St. Louis, 111 Pond Fort Trail. Steph's Pizza, where Mondays you get a large pizza for the price of a small, and it just got more convenient for pickup or delivery in Lake St. Louis. Steph's Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley on Long Road, in St. Peter's on Jungerman, and now in Lake St. Louis at 111 Pond Fort Trail. Check them out at stephspizza.com. Tonight's a good night for Steph's Pizza.
Hey, it's Tony Colombo reminding you to do what we did and get the jump on spring cleaning by calling Zero Res today. After the beating dished out by kids, the dog, and just general traffic, our home would not be the same without Zero Res. And right now, you can get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned starting at just $119. Plus, they'll throw in a free hallway and take $75 off an air duct cleaning if you just mention the Colombo special. Call and book now at 314-474-2020 or book online at ZeroResSTL.com.
Dr. Randy Tobler here, and I know that when you're looking for a dentist, you have to make sure you choose a dental practice that's compatible with you and the needs of your family. Well, I'd like to tell you about my dentist, Dr. Dan Cusimano, and his partner, Megan Dwyer, and their team at Advanced Dentistry at St. Charles. The great team at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles can accommodate all of your cosmetic and restorative needs because their passion is general dentistry. Implants, crowns, bridges, even dentures. That what you need the most is what they'll provide in a personalized, focused way. And they can provide therapeutic and cosmetic options like Botox and dermal fillers. Get to know them and all they have to offer by calling 636-978-0226 or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com. That's Dr. Daniel Cusimano and Dr. Megan Dwyer at Advanced Dentistry of St. Charles.
That's Advanced Dentistry Now, 636-978-0226. Or visit them on the web at advanceddentistrynow.com.
Hi, Jen Wallner here. As a former foster child myself, I have always been an advocate for foster children in our community. Angels Arms is an amazing organization that provides a stable, nurturing, and loving family environment for these children. They ensure these children have not only the childhood they deserve, but the resources needed to become successful, thriving adults. I truly believe that this organization is transforming lives, and I could not be more proud to be a small part of that accomplishment. For more information or to get involved, visit angelsarms.org.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain.
We give you news, analysis, opinion, and more. Only on News Talk STL.
I told Governor Murphy once, every time I hear the President of the United States look around and say, where the hell is he? He's coming.
And welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show with Susie Moore sitting in for Tim today. Tim will be back tomorrow, but as we said, we always love having Susie in. You know, the presidential sweepstakes, Republican side, of course, is starting to heat up. There are talks of Vivek Ramaswamy. Maybe we can get into this, where he claims that someone offered to have him do very well in the straw poll if he gave some money. The South Carolina former governor, Nikki Haley, she is making her way through Iowa as well. You know, people are trying to make their marks. They're trying to make money. They're trying to get their name out there. President Trump, you know, he has a near 100% name recognition. So there's really not much more he can do to get his name out there, and you either love him or hate him. But one of the things that people love about President Trump is, you know, he's a billionaire, and he did a lot of it by marketing. I mean, he owns properties, but a great deal of his wealth is by marketing is selling his,
branding.
licensing his name to other buildings. Some people may say that this is his next move here may be brilliant because, one, he can embarrass people and he can make a little money. It was reported today that former President Trump is putting out a book that includes letters from Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Princess Diana, Hillary Clinton, Ted Kennedy, North Korea's Kim Jong-un. I think that was one of the documents there. Mario Cuomo, Arnold Palmer, Jay Leno, Liza Minnelli, Regis Philbin, and Regis apparently gave him a salutation, "My dear Trumpster."
Aw.
But the one here that may cause a little consternation for one person, and it's funny how relationships just change, especially when your political affiliations are known. But one time the Donald and Oprah Winfrey were very, very close. And he is going to put a letter that she wrote to him that kind of shows her kind of fawning over it. According to Politico, Winfrey wrote to Trump after he sent her a book excerpt, apparently from his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, in which he wrote that his first choice for vice president would be Oprah Winfrey. Americans respect and admire Oprah for her intelligence and caring, he wrote. She has provided inspiration for millions of women to improve their lives, go back to school, learn to read, and take responsibility for themselves. If I can't get Oprah, I'd like to have someone like that. On letterhead that simply says, Oprah, she replied, I have to tell you, your comments made me a little weepy. It's the one thing to try and live a life of integrity, still another to have people like yourself notice. Oh, can you imagine Oprah's heartburn when that book is released, where she's basically fawning all over him through the pages, and the people that he's going to be able to embarrass with some of these letters? I mean, I think he wants to do this to make money, but this is also a great, payback to people, because it's like, you know what? You're saying I'm great and blah, blah, and it's your own words.
Yeah, it's savvy. It's classic Trump
because,
but here's the thing, he's right to an extent, because up until the time that he became a noted Republican and a candidate for the presidency, he was, even while people kind of laughed about sort of his braggadocio and his larger than life personality, and I don't know how serious people took him from a political standpoint, but he was very much treated like a celebrity and somebody that people did kiss up to. And, it's true in entertainment. It's true in politics. People put on a face and they behave a certain way towards people, and then they walk behind them and say, that's been happening for a long time. But it is kind of funny that in writing, he has proof that many of these people, including, Hillary Clinton, who probably curses the ground he walks on at this point, fawning over him. And I'm sure he will just enjoy the publicity that will bring.
Look, I have proof. Oprah, she loves me. She loves me. It's right here in the book. She loves me.
I would just like to say that I think I would feel better if Oprah Winfrey were our current vice president than Kamala. I think.
I don't know, because, Oprah, I think Oprah can put a sentence together.
Yes.
And she can sound like she's intelligent, knows what she's talking about. But I think right there, that's when the comparisons with Kamala start to come in.
I would have maybe felt differently before Kamala's tenure, but she has been very singularly unimpressive in the role. And I feel like one thing that Oprah has done over the years, setting aside what her politics are, is she's kind of been a problem solver. I mean, she's definitely taken on certain causes and aimed to improve.
You mean like Dr. Phil? Is he a cause?
Well, that's a different story. But no, I mean, and improve things. And there's plenty of assignments that have been given to our current vice president that she really doesn't seem to have done much to try and improve.
And how much of that do you think that she, you could say she's incompetent and she doesn't do the job. How much do you think she's trying to protect her image and trying to protect what future political prospects if she's too connected to the border, she's too connected to this and that? I think that's the reason why Pete Buttigieg took 3 weeks to go to East Palestine, because he didn't want to be connected to that.
I think it probably is a calculated move to avoid being connected with basically, the big crises that we're facing. Although, if she's worried about protecting her image, she should probably do herself a favor and brush up on the subjects on which she's speaking before she speaks on them, because otherwise she gets out in front of a crowd and starts talking about big yellow school buses and Venn diagrams.
The Venn diagrams.
That doesn't do her any
I like to think about a lot of things in the context of a Venn diagram. I love Venn diagrams. Always ask, is there a Venn diagram for this? I'm telling you, it's fascinating when you do.
It's so fascinating.
And just do the edibles at home. Just wait till you get home. In the limo, in the limo ride back to the residence.
I have
pop
to say,
a couple.
It does make me laugh at the idea of Trump releasing all of this information about all of these people that were just drooling over him. the entirety of his career, the entirety of his life, including Oprah Winfrey. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if it happened before he announced he was running for president. I don't know if things kind of fell awry and these people stopped having this connection with Trump before he ran for president. But I mean, he has pictures with 50 Cent. He has pictures with Diddy. He has pictures with Oprah. He has everyone you can think of, he has pictures with.
Just think if within that book there are letters from Whoopi.
Yes,
from
there
Joy,
are. Yes.
From
Whoopi for sure.
And from Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes.
Oh, if there are
Snoop
letters.
Dogg had a whole entire album cover of him beheading
I remember
Donald
that.
Trump
I remember
and stepping on his bloody corpse. And there are pictures of Snoop Dogg and Donald Trump.
Yeah. Everybody loved him till they hated him.
Exactly. You know, before we go to break, I want to get in a little bit. We talked about this morning on Newsmax. Did you see the Fetterman proof of life hostage videos that his office released of him?
I saw the photographs, the stills of him meeting with an advisor and looking at papers.
How
and looking
convincing was
grim.
that to you?
It was sad, is what it was. It convinced me that he's not doing well, and I think it's really unfortunate that the people that are around him didn't help steer him away from this, because I don't think this is a good place for him to be right now.
And here's a statement that the person that was in the photo with him, one of his aides, said that he meets with him a couple of times during the week for an hour. And that's enough for him to be abreast of what's going on in the Senate. He said, the legislative process doesn't really require a senator's physical presence, Susie.
So why do we have 100 of them?
It requires their intellectual engagement, and he's in a place where he's able to offer that. And gosh darn it, I feel good. I feel like Stuart Smalley's mind should have came in there somewhere.
I'm skeptical.
Yeah, and it makes me sad. The guy needs to take a break.
He does.
A long
And he
break.
needs a more supportive spouse.
Yes.
I agree. She's a fire woman, a fire person I saw. She joined after he became lieutenant governor. Became a firewoman. That was really strange. Hey, when we come back, Whitley Yates at 524. She's with Project 21. And we'd like to take your calls at 314-912-1019. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL.
This is Rob with St. Louis Bath and Renovation, and we'd like to let you know you don't have to maintain the grout in your home anymore. The grout on the floor or in your shower or bath area. How would you like zero grout in your bathroom? At St. Louis Bath and Renovation, we focus on grout-free options for your bathroom. If you hate cleaning grout, St. Louis Bath and Renovation, 314-477-6476. 314-477-6476. Give us a call.
Have you been floored? Not until you've gone to Michael's Flooring Outlet. They've been a locally owned and operated family business for more than 28 years. You want variety? Michael's has carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, luxury vinyl, natural stone, and many other options. Save money and get quality at Michael's. Plus, your installation will be done right the first time when you hire the experts at Michael's. You can shop in store at one of their 3 convenient locations or shop from home. Check out everything that Michael's has to offer at igotfloored.com.
You ever get the feeling that the world is being held together with duct tape? Every day we're thrown some new meaningless drama in the fake news to distract us from the reality we're all about to face. Between the government trying to print their way out of debt, military conflicts, the disintegration of our most trusted institutions, and a looming food shortage, preparedness is no longer a choice. It's a necessity. You can trust My Patriot Supply. Our emergency food kits come packed with tasty meals averaging over 2,000 calories per day. Get at least one kit for each person in your family. Self-reliance is the only alternative to government food lines. Time is running out. Become ungovernable. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com and save on dozens of different emergency food kits while you can. These kits are in stock, ship fast, and arrive in unmarked boxes for your privacy. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com before the next crisis strikes. MyPatriotSupply.com.
KLGY HD3 Clay, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019 94.1 and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Ukraine's power grid operator says Europe's largest nuclear power plant has been reconnected to the grid. Correspondent Karen Chamas reports.
The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant had lost power overnight as a result of a Russian barrage on 10 regions in Ukraine. The plant was forced to rely on diesel-powered generators for most of the day after Ukrainian authorities said the attacks had damaged power lines. Ukraine's power grid operator said in the afternoon that the power supply had been restored and the plant was switching away from generators. It's the sixth time that Europe's largest nuclear plant has been in a state of blackout since it was taken over by Russia months ago. I'm Karen Chamas.
President Biden's proposed budget by raising taxes on the wealthy is getting a big thumbs down from economic conservatives. Richard Stern of the Heritage Foundation tells the Salem Radio Network taxing the wealthy is counterproductive.
What happens is the wealthy continue with their lives as they are. It just simply means that the businesses they own have to shrink. They hire fewer people. They have slower wage growth. They produce fewer things.
Overall, the spending blueprint released Thursday anticipates an additional $5.5 trillion in revenue over the next 10 years, plus $2.6 trillion in new spending. Americans who came of age during the pandemic are skipping college in big numbers. Many have shunned traditional college paths, turning instead to hourly jobs or careers that don't require a degree. Boone Williams says instead of college, he's training to become a plumber.
I was seeing so many people go to college and dropping out, not making it, and they were getting degrees that they weren't even using.
On Wall Street, the Dow down by 543 points, the Nasdaq dropped 237, the S&P lower by 73, oil down to 75.72 a barrel. More at townhall.com.
Inflation is pushing up the cost of just about everything: food, gas, clothing. But life insurance, which thanks to inflation you need now more than ever, actually costs less today than it did a few years ago. Now is the time to get the insurance you need at a price you can afford. Call SelectQuote now and we'll help you save more than 50% on term life insurance. In a hurry? Don't worry. With SelectQuote, you can get up to $2 million in instant, same-day coverage with no medical exam. That's right. Get up to $2 million in instant, affordable same-day coverage with no medical exam in under an hour.
Call SelectQuote now at 1-800-507-2266. That's 1-800-507-2266. Or go to SelectQuote.com now and get up to $2 million in instant same-day coverage with no medical exam. That's 1-800-507-2266. Full details on example policies at Select.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest First Alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Well, with spring about to be sprung here in the heartland, we know the dog days of summer are not too far behind. Are you tired of dragging hoses around your yard to keep your grass alive during the summer months here in the heartland? Well, if so, now is the time to make your life easier. Tim Jones here for Professional Irrigation Systems. You need to give him a call today at 636-692-4441, 24/7 at proirrigation.com. They do residential irrigation installs in one day, custom irrigation designs for every single property. It's going to improve your curb appeal. They also offer incredible landscape lighting that's going to accent the architecture of your home. They've got fertilization packages as well. Look, folks, long story short, everything to improve the exterior of your home with great financing options to spread out your payments. As I said, give them a call today, 636-692-4441, 24/7 at proirrigation.com. That's proirrigation.com.
The news and talk
We need a DA here who's actually going to prosecute criminals.
that matters to St. Louis.
The student loan thing. They're doing everything they can to get us into a nuclear war with Russia.
This is 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here?
As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Why did this virus have the arginine sequences for human there, not bat? It was very disconcerting to me. It looked like this virus was engineered.
Was this, what you're observing and speaking of, is this something that would be in line with gain-of-function research and the capabilities it would provide to a virus?
Yeah, I mean, basically this lab published in 2014 that they accomplished in this, allowing the coronaviruses that they were working with in the lab to bind to the ACE2 receptor in humanized mice. And the only way they did that was by reorienting the binding domain.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 5:06 Thursday, March 9th. My partner Tim Jones is out today. He will be back tomorrow. Sitting in is Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. Hi, Susie.
Hi.
And always here is Katie Fitzpatrick,
Howdy,
Executive Producer of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. Boy, I tell you, this gain of function, Fauci, when did people know it and where did they know it, is really starting to get interesting now that the Republicans control the House and have investigative powers. Dr. Redfield gave some just riveting testimony explaining to us why that this was probably a lab leak. He said, one, the Chinese government deleted the sequences. Apparently that's something that's not done. Second, they went from a civilian control to a military control, and they let a contractor do the ventilation system. Susie, I don't know how up to date you are on this, but I don't understand what is the significance of the last thing of having a contractor do the ventilation system. How is that suspect and raise questions?
It just so happens I'm very up to date.
Okay, great.
I did a write-up on the House Oversight hearing yesterday,
excellent.
and because Red State has been covering this issue and delving into the possibility of a lab leak for well over 2 years, even though we were getting shut down for doing so. So actually the significance of that is the timing.
Okay.
The timing, this all happened in September of 2019. So you had simultaneous with the sequences being deleted, you had the military takeover of the lab, and then you had them redoing the ventilation system, which tells you that something happened.
Okay.
So that's why that was significant.
My gosh.
Like,
what? It's so strange to me that Dr. Fauci, how intricate his role actually is in this entire process, and how much he has denied gain of function, how he has denied that it came from a lab, how he has denied the timeline of when it started. And now I can't remember 100% what every question was asked of him whenever he was in front of Rand Paul at the time. But I guarantee these questions were asked of him in some way, shape, or form, and he denied all of them at a hearing. Isn't that, like, what is the punishment for that?
I mean, he is just a really very skilled liar. I mean, he is so good that you would be questioning, is your name really what you know that it is? He is so skilled at lying. I mean, if you look at it, there's proof that through the NIH he was funding gain-of-function research. You just look at all the lies about the mask and then wearing 2 masks and was saying that we don't need to wear masks. And he always has the little caveat that every time that he's proven wrong, which has been numerous times, well, it's the science. The science evolves, and we're just dealing with the information that we have at the time.
Yeah.
Is that his end? Look, trying to do his voice,
Yeah, that's gonna
it
hurt
messes
your
up my
throat.
voice. Dang it, Fauci.
See what you do?
Coughing on the mic. Sorry, we got to get some
terrible.
stuff.
But there are two examples of people that were upheld as heroes and they're actually villains. There's three. There's so many during this pandemic, but three of them really stick out. Dr. Fauci,
yes.
Suspect number one, lifted up as the hero, actually is the villain. Andrew freaking Cuomo.
Yes.
Hero was, when are you running? When are you running? Blah, blah, blah. Villain. And the third is Michael Avenatti. I will never let that scumbag go.
Wait a minute. How does Michael Avenatti fit?
He's not with the pandemic, but in that same time frame, remember he was and then I think at the beginning or maybe in the middle of the pandemic is whenever they found out that he was actually stealing money from Stormy Daniels.
Right.
And he got charged.
Can you cut him a little slack?
No.
Well, let me finish.
Okay,
let me finish.
but,
Can you cut him a little slack because he is a St. Louis boy and went to Parkway? He's a homer.
That makes it worse.
Yep.
I hate that that makes it worse, right, Susie?
It does. It does. Would you want to claim him if you were a Parkway Central grad? I would.
No.
I went to Parkway. I went to Parkway West, so I can put that little distance between us.
And just think, at one time, people were like talking about him running for president.
They were
on the Democrat
both him and Cuomo
side. Yeah.
No, and they would have totally cheered on Anthony Fauci running for president had it ever come up.
I mean, he's going to Iowa and New Hampshire and was making the rounds, and he was, criticizing Donald Trump, just like a candidate would. It was absolutely amazing.
What are all these people going to do when Donald Trump is no longer with us? Because, it's going to happen at some point. Now, it may be 90 or 20 years from now. But the bottom line is, nobody lives forever.
Yes.
And Donald Trump has been such an amazing foil and a moneymaker for so many. They've just made so much off of hating him.
What about the thing what about if there's no gasoline to put on the fire, eventually the fire goes out? That Trump was an enigma on the political scene since 2016, but and I don't know, but do you think in our lifetime, and Suze, we're 35, so we've got a lot of years to go, but do you think we'll see another Donald Trump type figure and rise to this level in politics?
I can't rule it out, and the reason why is because 20 years ago, no one could have foreseen the phenomenon of Donald Trump. No one would have agreed. I mean, people was it South Park or The Simpsons that predicted it, and everyone thought it was a joke because it was a joke, but then it wasn't.
And he teased many times. He teased the run on the Constitution Party, the Republican Party, even as a Democrat at one time, I think.
Following his success, there have been many who have tried to emulate it and tried to be sort of, Trump Jr. And that the problem with that is then you're not being your authentic self.
Right.
And one thing you can say about Donald Trump, whether you do like or don't like him, is he's pretty much himself. Now, he may not always be, you can quibble with whether or not what's coming out of his mouth is accurate or true, but he's genuine. I mean, he's unfiltered.
Yes.
No,
yes.
Don't doubt that.
And genuinely, for a lot of people, that's a bad thing. But so there's an authenticity problem. But that doesn't mean, who knows what the world looks like 20 years from now. So I can't rule it out, no.
I think more than anything, the Times created Donald Trump. Donald Trump always had the outsized personality.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the times where people became cynical of their government and used the term that Tucker Carlson uses, the uniparty, and voter apathy sets in. There's no reason to vote. It's kind of similar to the Rush Limbaugh phenomena. I mean, people are like, this guy is saying what I have been saying all of my life. He's saying it unabashedly, without any shame. That's why Rush blew up. That's why his critics could never understand. However much they tried to take him down, they couldn't. And it's kind of the same with Donald Trump in a sense. He is speaking. I mean, who would have ever thought? Just think about it. A guy that's worth $12 billion, according to Fortune 500, appeals to steel workers in Indiana and in flyover country.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought that?
It seems counterintuitive, but he found a way to connect with people and to speak to basically their grievances and their concerns, and in a way that the political class and the professional political class just is very removed from.
Yeah. He filled the void.
He definitely
Yeah.
did. And there's always the left right of politics, but even more so what we see these days is the elite everyday dichotomy. You've got people that just don't feel like the people that live in the Washington bubble really have any sense of what their life is like.
And the big question, as I said earlier in the week, Donald Trump is definitely the front runner. It's his to lose at this stage, and there's a strong 35% of the base that will vote for him no matter what. But I just wonder, and others probably wonder too, the moderate voters that abandoned him in a sense during 2020 and the candidates, the governor and Senate candidates that he supported, will those people vote for Donald Trump? And you can't make the argument of look how bad Joe Biden was, because we had that in the election. Look how bad he was in 2022. And people still, couldn't pull the trigger. Will they pull the trigger for him in 2024? That's the big question.
If he gets the nomination, is what you're saying.
If he gets the nomination and he's running, will Republicans that didn't vote for him and the Senate and governor candidates in 2022, will they vote for him in 2024?
I don't think there's any way you can say for sure, because I think there are some who will and some who won't. Some will look at whoever's running against him
but if
and
we
say,
don't have a good size of them, we don't win.
Well, I agree. But I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's a problematic situation because it's very difficult to see how you've got the baked in supporters, but you've got the baked in haters who will never know how, no way. So it's hard to work around that. I think there are a number of people who would prefer him not be the nominee, but if he is the nominee, would go ahead and vote for him.
I
particularly
agree with that.
given it depends on who the Democrats have. I mean, that there's a difference there. It presumably is supposed to be President Biden, but I think it's reasonable to question whether that will actually be the case.
How bad does he hurt himself personally and the brand if he doesn't win the nomination and goes third party? I mean, will that turn off? I mean, it'll turn off a few, I'm sure, but will it turn off enough of his voters that it could make a difference and they, vote for the nominee? Or
I think if he doesn't get the nomination and then went third party, I think there's a very, very high likelihood that means that whoever the Democrats put up wins. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, who's he going to split? He's going to split mostly the right. It's going to split mostly, the people in the middle are going to say, okay.
Yeah, I had
it's still Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we went down that pathway because I had a very interesting article, and I can remember most of it yesterday. But the group No Labels.
Yes.
They are a nonpartisan, supposedly, group. They've raised a ton of money. There was a group that put out a report on them that said that they are targeting Democratic voters. They appeal mainly to the Democratic voters, and the Democratic establishment is afraid of No Labels. They say that if the Republican and Democratic parties nominate really far right, far left people, then they're going to find a unity, quote unquote, candidate.
Do you know what's interesting is they basically put Donald Trump and Joe Biden as those people, which is really fascinating when you think about it. Donald Trump, who was a Democrat for many years and slowly became a Republican, and Joe Biden, who's been a moderate Democrat for all these years, they're now the right extreme and the left extreme. It's like, what hole did we fall down?
Who is, you may know this, who is No New Labels? Who is that? Who are the people behind that?
I don't know the answer to that. We ran an article on it yesterday at Red State about the concern that if those are the two, then there's one group that wants to run a unity ticket, but then they're opposing that because they're afraid if that group runs that, then that's going to give an opening to Donald Trump. So there's all this.
Oh man.
But I don't know who's behind No Labels. I can't remember.
We got quadruple chess going on here with these people working it.
I do have an example of someone that did say, and I won't say who this person is. Go ahead. But we're having a discussion, and they are not a big Trump person, but they said, if it is Joe Biden and Donald Trump, I will happily vote for Donald Trump. Yeah. And this person is not a Trump person
What were their reasons?
They because of what's been happening with Joe Biden. They're like, how in the world does someone like this crush and demolish the United States like he's been doing for the last 2 years?
So what did this person think of 2022 when the conditions were so bad and Republicans were supposed to have a red wave and didn't, and the Democrats survived? What was your friend's view on that?
That was not I don't know, because that was not part of the discussion.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to know what because the people kind of said that. It's like, look how bad things are.
Yeah.
You should give it over to the Republicans, let them take over, and you didn't.
But I think whenever when it comes to the presidential election and we see people show up for the presidential election, it is different numbers than the people that show up for the red wave that we thought that we were going to get. So it wasn't in the context of, did you vote in the midterm? Mm-hmm. It was in the context of, everything is already over and done with, and these are the two people that you are going to be voting down on the ticket. And we know that the voter turnout for presidential elections is astronomically different than it is for a midterm.
Yeah. You know, one of the indications that a campaign is doing well, one of them is raising money, of course. The second is earned media, how much exposure you're getting. One of the things that are done with presidential campaigns, modern day presidential campaigns, they go on book tours, they write books. I've read a few of them. They're not the best-selling, well-read, or interesting books. The New York Times dogged out DeSantis' book, said it was written by ChatGPT. That's how bad they said it was. But he's getting the laugh, Susie. His book is #1 on the New York Times best-selling list. And the caveat to that is that they're saying there's no indication that people bought a bunch of books to try to pump up the numbers. This is real numbers where people are reading his book and have made him #1.
I think it would be very difficult to deny the fact that Ron DeSantis is an important figure right now in our national politics. He's somebody that people are keeping an eye on. They have taken note of his leadership as the governor of Florida and are speculating on what his future holds. So the fact that, he's got a book out and people are flocking to read it doesn't surprise me. I'm sure there are plenty that are wanting to read it so they can tear it apart, and some that are wanting to read it just because they want to know more about this guy. There's been a lot of focus on him, so it makes sense.
Donald Trump, and I was on the Cruz campaign in South Carolina, where we thought we were going to do well there because Ted Cruz is an evangelical. It's the South. We were really surprised the support that Donald Trump got. He's been a little upset this time around because a lot of evangelical leaders have said that they're not going to endorse him. They want to wait and see the field. There's an interesting poll out by Monmouth. How do you say that? Monmouth University. It was late January, early February. It found that Ron DeSantis is leading Donald Trump by 7 percentage points among self-identified evangelical Republicans in a head-to-head matchup. So I found that very interesting.
That's probably one that won't get truthed.
You don't think so?
No.
I agree with you. When we come back, we'll speak with Whitley Yates. She's a Project 21 member, award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, a political activist. She does it all. And you know what? She's also going to law school. So she is very, very, very busy. We're going to talk to her about securing the border and preventing some of these 100,000 a year fentanyl deaths. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9, 94.1. News Talk STL, welcome home.
He's heard your name.
You're listening to News Talk STL.
We can go out driving on slow hand road.
If that's his wish.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Columbo and Katie.
Kellyanne Conway, I wanted to get your thoughts on what happened with Don Lemon last week.
My experience with him is he's always been a misogynist, sexist. jerk. His treatment of me on his program and then his treatment of me when I wasn't on his program has been abhorrent. I don't know how you train people away from something that they believe. He clearly believed it wasn't a slip of the tongue.
Tony Colombo, Katie Fitzpatrick. Weekdays at 2 on News Talk STL.
Seidenstricker Nobe is your John Deere partner for the land. Right now, we have affordable pricing on John Deere compact tractor packages with a mower and a loader starting as low as $216 a month. With our exclusive S&P 10-year warranty, this is your chance to add versatility and power to your outdoor lineup. Plus, be on the lookout for our 2023 spring tent sale schedule. Visit snpartners.com for more information.
Some restrictions apply. See dealer for details. Offer expires 4/30/23.
Are you looking for a great place to hold an event here in 2023? Well, look no further than the place that we have had so many events at. We're having an event there next week, View 17. Check them out online, view17.com. View 17 is an ultra-modern media conference and event center. It's located right here in the heart of St. Louis, right here in the heart of the county of St. Louis, across the street from the Galleria Mall. That's that big, tall tower, the 17th floor. Dual views of the beautiful city of St. Louis downtown skyline and the city of Clayton skylines as well. Look, View 17 is an incredible space. It's incredibly adaptable. It's incredibly flexible. You can do just about anything there. Your imagination is your only limitation. They can set up the room for webinars, conferences, debates, events, bar mitzvahs, birthday parties, anything you can think of. As I mentioned, we've had a ton of events there as well here at News Talk STL Nation. You really should check out the incredible photos online and all that this space has to offer you, your company, your business, your family. As I said, anything you can think of. Check them out online right now, view17.com. That's VUE17.com, view17.com. I may see you there.
Who has the best burger around town? Who has 19 TVs, 4 pool tables, 5 dartboards, and 3 golden tea machines? Who is open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week? Who has live music every Saturday night? Check it all out at 2shamrockspublichouse.com. That's 2 Shamrocks in O'Fallon, Missouri. Plus, the owners, Tim and Mel, are pretty awesome.
2 Shamrocks Public House. Online at 2shamrockspublichouse.com.
Hey, it's Tim Jones. You need an event space that people will talk about later and forever? View 17 in Brentwood is that place. Perfect for corporate, private, or even public events. View 17 is ultra-modern and fully broadcast ready for live streaming your event. And get this, all tech rentals are included in the rental fee. View 17 on the 17th floor of the old U Club Tower. Like no other event space in the area, what a view. Check it out right now at VUE17.com. VUE17.com. I might even see you there.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 528. Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com, is sitting in. Very excited to talk to our next guest, Whitley Yates. She's a fellow Project 21 member, award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and a political activist. And we're going to talk to her about fentanyl and how it has affected her life personally. Whitley, how are you?
You know, I'm doing okay.
It's fantastic.
No reason to complain yet.
I hear. It was great to meet you a couple of weeks ago at the RNC's Black History event. And it's exciting to see your career progress and see how you're going to progress the movement in the future. You know, we talk about fentanyl. 100,000 people a year die in drug overdoses. 70,000 of those are fentanyl, a big majority of them. We heard the story about the mother who lost 2 sons to fentanyl. Do you have a similar example?
Absolutely. So I am actually in Indianapolis, Indiana. We're pretty far away from the border, and we're still reeling from the crisis happening at the border as fentanyl has basically infiltrated our state, and it is now being laced in all types of things, all types of drugs, and we are actually feeling the effects here. I've had 2 family members die in the past 30 days from fentanyl overdoses being laced in, I think, some of their cannabis is what we were told. And so my family has been feeling the effects of this, but it's not just an Indiana issue. It's an American issue, and it's coming from the lack of leadership that we have in the White House in addressing the crisis at the border, where all 50 states are being flooded with fentanyl from across the border, and it's impacting not only families like mine, but also families of young children. I just read a story this week where an infant was on a family vacation with the family. The child was crawling around at an Airbnb and died of fentanyl poisoning because the previous tenants of the Airbnb had some type of wild party and the cleaners didn't clean up good enough, and there were some mild traces, and the child was exposed to fentanyl and died. And this story and more stories like this impacting children ages 5 and under are happening around the country as well.
Whitley, this is Susie Moore, and I'm very sorry for your loss. My family experienced something similar several years ago, so I understand. It's a very painful situation, and the issue with fentanyl has only gotten worse. I know that the statistics are that it's the number 1 killer, I think, of 18 to 45-year-olds at this point. Yesterday, Senator Graham indicated he was planning to introduce legislation that would designate the drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which would in turn allow the U.S. to use military force against those cartels. I don't know if you've had a chance to hear what he had to say or to review the proposal, but do you have any thoughts in addition to securing the border about the U.S. using military force to go after these drug cartels?
I think that the U.S. should use any resource that they have at their disposal to protect American citizens from enemies, both foreign and domestic. So that could mean the cartel, that could mean anyone coming across the border with any intentionality of providing substances that are not good for American consumption. I think it's incumbent upon all of our leaders and those specifically in elected positions that have the power to produce policies that could impact this, that could produce, more attention and intention in solving this problem. It's incumbent upon all of them. I also saw Arizona is going to get some new equipment that they use at their ports to detect fentanyl, which I think is a really great option. So from the State House to the White House to Congress, everyone should be trying to do something or finding ways that they can really just attack this opioid issue and do what they can.
You know, Whitley, and I've said this before when I've made commentary on the border and the fentanyl problem. You know, if ISIS was killing 70,000 Americans every year, there would be a tremendous sense of urgency of trying to stop this problem. What can we do? I tell you, a lot of people forget that the rock pop music superstar Prince died of a fentanyl overdose. And you would have thought that would have put this on folks' radar screens, that if someone of his stature, wealth, and fame can lose his life to this, then anyone can.
Absolutely. I don't think that it was as widely known that Prince died of that fentanyl overdose. But now I think we have to make it a kitchen table conversation. It's incumbent upon us to not hide it from the media, and the chances and opportunities that we have to speak out about it so that more people know what's happening and how it's impacting us is important. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share, what happened to my family, but I felt it's incumbent upon me in the places and spaces that I occupy to utilize my voice to let people know what's happening. And so if we care about our citizens, if we care about our country, it is vitally important that we spread this message, specifically those that are in the media, because for some reason, Joe Biden's media does not want to cover these fentanyl overdoses.
Yeah, Whitley. I mean, it's become a politicized issue, unfortunately, like so many things. But yet, it should be a common goal for most Americans to want to get a handle on this. We've talked a lot about securing the border and maybe some federal level solutions. And I know you mentioned Arizona implementing this new maybe testing method that might help detect it. What are things that state and local leaders could be doing to address the issue as well, in your opinion?
I think that on a state level, some of the things that they could be doing is, I'm going to be honest, harsher penalties for people found dealing fentanyl. And not just harsher penalties, but the prosecutors actually need to then prosecute the people who are doing this, so that those who want to perpetrate those types of crimes stay behind bars and are not back into our communities or let back into our communities to perpetrate more crime and harm towards our communities. And so those who are dealing and prosecutors on a local level could be very impactful. When it comes to state legislatures, I believe that there could be more attention, specifically from the health departments, and programs and grants geared towards the opioid crisis, specifically fentanyl, and those people who are utilizing illicit drugs and opioids that have fentanyl in it and may be addicted, which could be also driving some of this stuff across our borders, is getting it in from opioid addiction. But specific programs and grants that target fentanyl specifically from a state legislator perspective.
Speaking with Whitley Yates, Project 21 member, and the article that she wrote for nationalcenter.org's Project 21, Secure the Border to Prevent Other Fentanyl Tragedies. President Biden has been accused of having a kid glove policy towards China. A lot of people are unaware that not only does fentanyl originate from the cartels in Mexico, but a lot of it comes from China. Do you think that could be one of the reasons why that we're seeing such a proliferation of drugs in this country, because of Biden's soft on China policy towards them for some reason?
I do agree that our foreign affairs right now is not in the best place. It may be in dire straits at this point. And I am someone who tends to look at things objectively. And at the end of the day, whether or not you believe how we should be engaging with China or dealing with issues specifically in Mexico, something should be done. As citizens, we deserve to have our leaders lead. Whether or not I voted for you, whether or not I support you, you have to be a leader. And so what I'm looking for is a plan of attack, specifically when it comes to foreign affairs and how we're going to handle the foreign affairs and how that impacts the lives of Americans, not just China, not just Mexico, but Iran and all of these other places. And so what I would like to see from the current administration is a plan. And I haven't seen that as of yet, but it could be coming. I don't know.
Don't hold your breath.
Whitley, I know that you and Chris connected, I think you said, at the RNC event several weeks ago, and you're also a Project 21 member. What was it that attracted you to Project 21?
That's a really great question. I honestly think that conservative voices, specifically from the Black community, are not heard. And when we are heard, specifically from the left, we are called everything but a child of God, right? We're called tokens and all of these different things, as if the color of my skin denotes what my political ideology and what my beliefs are. And so with Project 21, I found a place where my voice could be heard, where it could be amplified. And by standing up for what I believe in, I believe I found so many other people that also identify with the same ideologies as me. And at the end of the day, what matters is how we stand up for our beliefs. What matters is when I am looking to be a leader in my community, that I don't just talk about things that I want to see, but that I'm actively engaged and involved in putting in the work to make the change. That I start where I am with what I can, and I do absolutely everything in my power to make sure that I'm not someone who pontificates what the politicians should be doing, when on a local level and a community level that I could be out here impacting people's lives and making the change. And so with Project 21, I really just found a home where my voice could be amplified, and I can find other centers of influence who are like-minded that can come together and really just push and propel these conservative principles.
Whitley, I regularly see you on Newsmax. When is your next Newsmax appearance and what show?
Yes. I was on Newsmax today. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, you can find me on Newsmax with Katrina and Bob, giving everyone the business and talking politics. And on a local level, if you're in Indiana, I'm on Wish TV on Sundays as a political insider, dissecting not only state and local news, but also national news as well.
And I think I let the cat out of the bag. I read your bio here of all the things that you're involved in. And if I remember from social media, are you going to law school as well?
Oh, yes.
How are you fitting all of that in there?
Well, actually, in Indianapolis, we have a hybrid program where you only have to be in class for 2 days and everything else is online. Oh. And it is a part-time hybrid program that works for working professionals at the McKinney School of Law.
Well, my co-partner, Susie Moore, is an attorney, a recovering attorney. So
best of luck to you, Whitley. That's an admirable endeavor.
I'm going to need it.
Whitley, thank you so much for being on the show. As I said, it was great to meet you a couple of weeks ago, and I hope you will be a friend of the show and will come on again in the future.
Absolutely, Chris. Thank you so much, Chris and Susie, for having me.
Thank you. And that was Whitley Yates, Project 21 member. You know, I am really, even when you just look at the Republican movement in general, we always talk about here in Missouri, you look at our presidential candidates, we have a very deep base. The Democrats don't. And even when you look at our black conservative movement right now, there's the old heads like me that have been were conservative when it wasn't cool.
The OGs.
The OGs, there you go. But there is a very growing, vibrant 20, 30-something black conservative movement, and Whitley Yates is a part of it. And it's really exciting to see the new crop of leaders coming up. And I'm pumped.
Yeah.
When we come back, we'll open it up to discussion. Our phone lines are 314-912-1019. You're listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on News Talk STL.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton with your first alert forecast. Rain tapers off this evening. It's dry the rest of the night and into Friday morning with a chilly start of 36 degrees. Another cool day, 48 for the high, partly to mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy on Friday. Saturday, we start at 33 and dry, a high of 45 for a chilly day, cloudy skies, and yes, a chance of rain again, especially around noon into the afternoon. The afternoon looks pretty wet and some scattered showers continue into the evening, tapering off Saturday night. That's the latest first alert forecast. I'm News 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
Mike Ferguson in the morning.
Exciting thing to ponder. We're going to talk about it on Friday. Is there actually some momentum for smaller government, even in deep blue St. Louis?
Mornings starting at 5:30 on News Talk STL.
There's only one unforgivable crime in America today, and that's standing up against the left. This is Mark McCloskey, proud to join the News Talk STL team, and I plan on committing that crime every chance I get on the air and every day of our lives. And I encourage all of the listeners and all the people of America to stand up against the left, to reclaim our freedoms, and we're going to do it on this radio station and throughout the country.
Mark McCloskey on fire.
Join me on this quest to preserve our freedoms and make sure this government works for us.
Sundays at 5 on News Talk STL.
Stories of New Americans.
Hi, this is Ron Clutho. Join me this weekend for Stories of New Americans, where you'll hear fascinating and inspirational personal stories of people from all over the globe who now call St. Louis home. We'll take a look at the U.S. through newcomers' eyes and get insight into world history and culture, and maybe just learn a little bit more about ourselves.
Stories of New Americans with Ron Clutho. Saturday nights at 10 on News Talk STL.
It's Proctor spelled like doctor for custom window fabrics and shutters. Upgrade or start from scratch. Either way, Michael is the St. Louis expert. Check him out at proctordrapery.com and then call Proctor spelled like doctor for shutters, shades, and draperies.
Proctor Drapery, the best in town. No finer window fashion can be found. Call for an appointment at your home. Spell Proctor like doctor.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness 101. Wellness 101 is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common sense, science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on News Talk STL. For more information, visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
This hour of Jones and Arps brought to you by Window World. Simply the best for less. 314-993-1800 or visit windowworld.com.
Kool and the Gang back in the day. That's a long time before Celebration.
They
were a little more funkier back
old
then.
school cool.
Exactly. Welcome back to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. That voice you hear is Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor for RedState.com. And Susie, let's talk about what's on Red State. What have you edited today?
A lot. There's been a lot of coverage of the hearings, both the one yesterday regarding COVID origins and the one today regarding the weaponization of the federal government against, and they brought in two of the guys that have been dealing with the Twitter files to testify about that. So there's been a lot of coverage of that. There's been a lot of coverage of the fallout from the release of the J6 tapes. Tucker's playing them on the air and sort of the
I don't think we've talked to you since those, because we talked to you Monday, but they came out that
Monday night,
and I don't think we've asked you your opinion on the tapes. Does it change anyone's opinion on anything? Was this a good thing to do this? What is your opinion, Susie Moore?
My opinion is that this is footage that should have been released a long time ago. And now, the caveat I will put on that is if there's any of it that would give away either like secret hiding places or things that shouldn't be made public from a safety strategic standpoint, I agree that shouldn't necessarily be released to everybody. But overall, I mean it's frustrating because, and this is what my more to the point is about tomorrow.
Okay. Don't give too much away.
No, I'm not going to give too much away. But this phenomenon we have where people are trying to limit what others say and what others see, and make things opaque instead of transparent is maddening to me. It's totally against, I think, the founding principles of our country, and we chose to live we chose to set up a free country, and one that more information and more speech and more dialogue should be a good thing. And yet right now we're caught in the thrall of this like heavy-handed shut up, put this idea in a box, put this voice in a box concept, and it's coming from the left that was traditionally the champion of all of those things. And I was of that left, I was raised under that. And so it makes me really, you can tell I'm getting a little animated.
Yeah.
It makes me really frustrated that people that are supposed to be liberty-minded and, believe in freedom are so afraid of another viewpoint and another piece of information being out there that they're willing to squelch it and squelch the people that want to voice it.
One of the reasons that Tucker Carlson put out for these tapes and supporters was to show the nation that there were people that maybe have entered the Capitol illegally or were trespassing, but they weren't trying to break glass, break down doors. They weren't rowdy. And for me personally, I knew that already.
We knew it that day. We saw it.
But I'm just saying, I never thought that every single person that entered the Capitol trespassing was tearing up stuff and breaking things. So for me, I'm just saying it proved what I already knew anyway. And how many right-thinking people swallow the narrative that everybody in there was vandalizing everything? I mean, do you think that's the common thought that people had? Every single person there was vandalizing.
I think what it does, Chris, because if you were like me, most of us were watching it unfold in real time that day.
Yep.
I mean, I was home. I don't know if we had a snow day that day or what, but I was home and I watched it all unfold live. And we saw the guy like walking through with the podium and the guy with the QAnon shaman guy. I mean, that day you could see people walking between the ropes.
Right.
And being, so it was like you saw both things. And if you didn't let your partisan blinders then glom onto this narrative versus that one, you knew that. But since that time, particularly with the J6 committee, as soon as they saw this as a way to get Donald Trump and Republicans, this became a story that was being crafted by the J6 committee that all presented just the one side of it, the bad, the horrible part of it. And there was horrible stuff that day.
We talked about this. This was one of the topics on Newsmax this morning. The question that we were asked, didn't just both sides just take 40,000 hours of footage and cherry pick the things that they want and create a narrative?
Yes.
Didn't they both do that?
Yes. And so here's the thing. I think there's an argument to be made that what Tucker is doing right now is pushing back on what was done by those on the left regarding this and saying, look, the Josh Hawley thing is a perfect example. They played that tape of Josh Hawley trotting across the hall and people laughed. I mean, they set it to music, I believe. And it was
like on a loop.
Right. And it was made to mock him because they were mad at him because of his raising his fist earlier in the day and because of him being a Trump supporter. And when you see the full thing in context, it's a whole bunch of senators trotting, and he's the last one. He's literally running behind like 10 or 12 other senators, and they're all being ushered out. So I mean, let's put it in context. Let people draw their own conclusions. Why do you have to tell them what their conclusion should be? Some people could look at that and still say, okay, yeah, he shouldn't have been running or I hate him.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, that's kind of just silly. That's just silly partisanship. But the other footage where you see people, some are breaking glass, some are vandalism. Then you have people that are being very polite. We all saw that.
Right.
In real time. I guess my point is what did Tucker releasing these tapes, what did it already prove? Because I think most sensible people know that, hey, not everybody, not all 10,000 freaking people that were there at the Capitol were damaging the building. I think most sensible thinking people know that.
See, I just have a small disagreement with that though, because the committee and the hearings, people watched that committee and those hearings when they were going on for weeks. They watched that like it was the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. And that footage wasn't shown. But who
watched that?
I know moderate conservatives that watched it all the way to the very far left that watch it. And all of them did believe that maybe not tens of thousands of Stop the Steal people were doing it, but thousands.
I think the people that watched those videos were Trump haters and Democrats.
You know what? They definitely were. They absolutely were. And I don't think that I think to your point, I don't think any Trump people that love Trump watched those committee hearings. I mean, I didn't watch those committee hearings, and I'm not like, woohoo, Donald Trump. But to what you're saying is sensible people didn't believe that thousands of people breached the Capitol. But sensible people did watch those committee hearings, whether they are right or whether they are left or whether they are moderate. They did have an intrigue to see what was going on with this committee and what happened at January 6th.
And I'll admit it, I watched the first night of the hearings. I watched the first hour.
They believed that thousands of people stormed the Capitol, breached the Capitol, and were breaking stuff inside.
I would love to see somebody do a national poll on that and say, did you think that there was a small percentage of the crowd that was creating the mayhem on January 6th, or was it an overwhelming majority? I would love to, because I think the polling would say there's a small percentage of the crowd. We know it wasn't the majority that did the mayhem. It's always the 80-20 principle.
Chris, you are giving you I think are kind of maybe looking past the fact that a lot of people, particularly people who aren't necessarily political junkies and don't breathe this stuff day in and day out like you and I do, they see headlines, they see snippets, and over time their memory kind of conforms to what they're seeing. And this was a very one-sided narrative for 2 years. So I think the argument that can be made is that showing things on a very high-profile show that contradict the one-sided story that was being told over and over and over again for 2 years, it's propaganda pushing back on the propaganda.
How many total people were arrested that day?
That day?
Yeah. Or not that day, but total from January 6th to now.
There have been hundreds. I want to say for some reason the number 800
That's
is
what
in
I was
my mind.
thinking, 800.
But I'm not 100% sure about that.
Out of how many people?
10,000.
Yeah.
Maybe more than 10,000.
Right. And some of those people.
I'm giving people too much credit. I think
you are.
People knew.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think you're underselling the power of propaganda. That's what I think.
I like that.
But anyway, made you quiet. You got real quiet on me all of a sudden.
I'm actually pondering that because I like how you phrase that. Say that again.
I think you undersold the power of propaganda.
Undersold the power. I like how you phrase that because I'm trying to ponder exactly what that means and understand it.
Well, now you've got homework.
Now we're gonna think about it.
Well, a good show today. I
Very
enjoyed
good.
it. Susie,
Very
thank
good.
you for
having me.
coming in. Katie, thank you for doing the wonderful job that
Thank
Hugo.
you, Chris.
Oh, we're out
Great job
almost,
today.
aren't we? Hey, make sure you keep listening because at 6 o'clock we'll have Larry Connors USA. Larry will give you his take on the news items of the day, and you know it will always be good. You've been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
Freedom isn't just a word. It should be a way of life for all Missourians. Wouldn't it be wonderful to live in a state where you're free from excessive taxes, regulations, and corporate handouts, and free to send your children to the school of your choice? That's why we at the Show Me Institute put together our 2023 Missouri Blueprint, a roadmap on how the state can progress to a bright future. The blueprint covers policy ideas from taxes to government transparency, from education to health care, and more. Our vision is for Missouri to be a place where entrepreneurs can pursue their dreams. Parents are free to direct the education of their children, and a growing economy provides opportunities for all. Critical to achieve